If you ask whether Hiyori is important or not, I could say that even if Hiyori never exists, the only thing that would be different is the profile picture of this channel. While it's true that recently Hiyori has been getting a spotlight as a potential true love for Ayanokoji, the impact that she gives to the story is almost non-existent, and could easily be replaced by the others. However, Hiyori's popularity is undoubtedly one of the highest in the series, so needless to say, Hiyori's expulsion will definitely become a really big shock for the readers. Removing a popular character usually means killing the series' popularity, but ever since Sakayanagi withdrew from school, anything seems possible to happen. The possibility of Hiyori's expulsion has become more worrying ever since the arrival of Volume 4 third-year arc illustrations, where Hiyori was shown smiling with sunset as her background. It's not a happy smile by any means, and if we look back to Hiyori's monologue in the beginning of Volume 3 third-year arc, the sunset setting is exactly the same, so this illustration probably happens at the end of the volume. There is something unsettling about how Hiyori's right hand tried to touch her left hand. It doesn't seem like she tried to pray, but more like she cherished her left hand as if she already made a final handshake with someone she loves. Of course, this is a weak possibility, because it's uncommon for someone who is dear to each other to shake hands using a left hand. It's also possible that Hiyori tried to touch her wristwatch. In the uninhabited island exam, the wristwatch could ring to warn the user about the user's health, or even beep to announce disqualification. There are a few ways to use the wristwatch for whatever new exam will come in the next volume, but whatever it is, the look on Hiyori's face doesn't seem like it's good for her. By the way, it's good to see Hiyori finally wearing a proper wristwatch, because in her illustration from the previous volume, her wristwatch was nowhere to be seen. However, this single illustration of Hiyori changes the atmosphere of the new volume, because unlike the previous illustration that looks like total fan service, Hiyori's illustration looks more like the end of service. It doesn't mean she will get expelled, and I actually have a pretty strong argument that Hiyori will survive. Let's start by seeing the pattern of the previous volume. There are 3 volumes where major expulsions happen in the second year arc, which are Volume 5, Volume 10, and Volume 12.5. Believe it or not, there are a few similarities between these 3 volumes, and one of them is the fact that the expelled students never appear in the colored illustration. We didn't get Sakura colored illustration in her final volume. We also didn't get a colored illustration for Kamuro and Sakayanagi when it was time for them to go. So if the expulsion follows the same pattern, Hiyori will not get expelled despite the rise of her death flag. I know this is a really unreliable pattern, but since the colored illustrations are placed at the very front of the volume, the light novel usually doesn't put important scenes in those illustrations to avoid spoilers. If you look more into it, the 3 volumes where expulsion happened have another similarity, which is the fact that it usually started with fan service illustration. We were baited with a maid cafe illustration in Volume 5, smiling Horikita in Volume 10, and casual clothing Chabashira in Volume 12.5. By first releasing those illustrations, they create an atmosphere that the next volume will be fun to read, so the impact of the expulsion will be much greater. Volume 4 of the third year arc also started with a really spicy illustration of Tsubasa and Ichika in their swimsuits, but then we were presented with a sad-looking Hiyori, so it's highly possible that expulsion will really happen in this volume. However, once again, the expelled character never appears on the colored illustration, so Hiyori's chance to get expelled is really small. On the contrary, we usually got a sad-looking illustration from someone else when a character got expelled. We got Chabashira's mourning face when Sakura got expelled, and later we got Sakayanagi's empty feeling when she mourned for Kamuro. If we are following that pattern in this volume, it's possible that someone else will get expelled, and it will deeply affect Hiyori. An expulsion from Ryuen's class is something that is easily believable, not only because they still have 40 students intact, but also because it's important for Ryuen to get more development. However, for an expulsion to give that much impact for Hiyori, it must be from someone who she is close with, which means that person is also close to Ryuen. I think Ibuki would give us the most impact if she got expelled, but since she already appears in the other colored illustration, her expulsion contradicts the pattern, so the remaining options are either Ishizaki, or maybe Albert. Ishizaki is quite the prime candidate because we knew that he was important, but not that important for the rest of the class. He doesn't contribute much other than being Ryuen's lackey, but his expulsion will definitely shock Hiyori. If we take a look at Nishino's quote from the third-year website, she said that if someone is gone, things will be quiet in a bad way. So far Ishizaki is the only one she ever spoke like that, so everything seems to align for Ishizaki to become the sacrifice for Ryuen and Hiyori's development. However, let's not talk about who's going to get expelled, and focus on Hiyori. Despite the expulsion pattern not supporting her expulsion, there is actually a simpler reason why I think Hiyori is not going to be expelled yet, which is the fact that she has not yet unleashed her potential. And like Sakura Kamuro or Meizono, Hiyori is always portrayed as a very intelligent person, so her expulsion will leave a really big gap in Ryuen's class. Expelling Hiyori is the same as wasting a potential, and from what we saw from Ryuen's class so far, they are going to need every single bit of potential that they have. Not to mention that if we take a look at Hiyori's monologue from the third-year website, she said that she will do things the way only she can do, and since her monologue in the last volume already sounds like she's giving up, I think it's safe to assume that Hiyori's third-year monologue will not happen in the next volume. Hiyori could be expelled in the next semester, or it's even possible that she got expelled in the summer break, but the chance of her getting expelled in the next volume is small, or even non-existent. Of course it's just a prediction, but Hiyori still has a lot of plot left on her that is impossible to solve in a few volumes, such as being an important member of Ryuen's class, or becoming a true love for Ayanokoji. Needless to say, even if she gets expelled, the chance of Ryuen using 20 million points to save her is not small. And since her relationship with Kaneda started to build from the last two volumes, maybe Kaneda will sacrifice his protection points for her. The point is, there are a lot of things that don't support Hiyori's expulsion, so even if every illustration from the new volume teased her expulsion, every Hiyori lover out there could still take it easy. It will be fun to see a story about Ichinose trying to expel Hiyori, but so far the story hasn't shifted that way. So let's take a look at the other illustration to see what kind of story is waiting for us in the next volume. For starters, the cover of the next volume is featuring Kushida and Ibuki, and whether you like it or not, it seems Tomose's art style has changed once again. There is not much to say because the cover usually doesn't mean anything, but I do love how Kushida smiles in this cover. I am not an expert in judging people's smiles, but paired with the wind and blue sky, there is a sense of freedom in her smile. I like to think that it was her true smile without any fake personality, and since she was paired with Ibuki in this cover, maybe it has something to do with their dinner group. Coincidence or not, Kushida and Ibuki got another colored illustration with the two of them, and both of them have an almost identical expression in both the cover and the colored illustration. Unfortunately, there is not much we could figure out from this illustration. If we add this with the first swimsuit illustration, it's highly possible that the next special exam will be heavily related to water, but it does raise a question why Kushida and Ibuki remain with their sport uniforms, while Tsubasa and Ichika get swimsuits. It's also possible that the next exam will require them to create a team with students from different classes, because seeing Kushida simply happy beside Ibuki could only mean that Ibuki possesses no harm toward her. If that's really the case, this is probably the beginning of the long-awaited Ryuen and Horikita cooperation. Anyway, that's pretty much all I can say only from these illustrations. We will need to wait for the synopsis or trial reading to make more predictions, but no matter what will happen in the next volume, at least Hiyori will be safe, and that is enough for me.